Morning, everyone. Oh, come on. Good morning. Look out the window, see the beautiful sun, the beautiful scenery. I'd like to thank you for coming to the Merrimack Valley Chamber Breakfast. I'd like to introduce Michael Bevilacqua, our Vice President. He'll give you a couple words, and then he'll tell you about some upcoming programs that I know you're going to want to be part of. This is the most successful chamber business organization anywhere in this region. It's because of members like you, because of the close contacts we have with our legislators, and because of the programs we put together, because we listen to you. So please welcome Michael.
Good morning, everyone. They like you better, I think. Thank you all for joining us for our State Senate breakfast. I want to thank our speakers this morning for joining us, taking time out of their schedules to meet with you, our members of the Merrimack Valley Chamber of Commerce. And I also want to thank our sponsors of this Government Affairs series, including the State Senate program this morning. I want to thank All Pro Electric, Covanta, the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, the Merrimack Valley Credit Union, National Grid, Tech Inc., the Engineering Corp., and Unicare. So I just want to give them all a round of applause and thank them again for their sponsorship. As Joe said, we're the most active Chamber of Commerce, I think, in the country, in the world even. We have over 100 in-person programs each year. This Monday we were in Haverhill for a networking mixer at Roasted in Haverhill. Just last night we had our Next Generation Leaders Young People in Business program in Lawrence. And then we're here this morning for our State Senate Breakfast Forum as well. So we have a whole host of great upcoming programs coming up for the Merrimack Valley Chamber of Commerce. I'm not going to read them all off to you. The one I want to highlight is on April 5th. We have 4 great programs in one day. It's all capped off with our annual Business Expo Health and Wellness Fair. It's going to be taking place at Michael's Function Hall in Haverhill. There's an early bird rate, so there's still plenty of time to sign up, advertise your products, advertise your services, and promote them to the hundreds that will be coming in that day. And then also that day we have our Spring Business Expo Breakfast Forum. It's going to be highlighted by our Energy and Environmental Forum, and that's Rebecca Tepper, who's the keynote speaker. She's the Mass Secretary of Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, will be the keynote speaker that morning. And then also in the afternoon, our annual Economic Development Forum luncheon is highlighted by the Economic Development Secretary for the state of Massachusetts, and that's Yvonne Howe. So 2 secretaries from the state of Massachusetts in one day at the Merrimack Valley Chambers Expo. And then we also have a mixer that evening. So again, plenty of time to register, save money on the early bird rate, and that's our Spring Business Expo Health and Wellness Fair, April 5th at Michael's Function Hall. And with that being said, I'm going to turn it over back to Joe.
Thank you. And I really want to recognize the fact that we've been able to contact and be in tune with the new administration in Boston. Every time there's a new governor, everything changes, as you all know. And already we've had the lieutenant governor at our mayors and town managers breakfast. We anticipate the governor at the annual dinner. And already we now have the Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs coming, the Secretary of Economic Development coming, the Secretary of Labor is coming, we think, in May. We've got a tentative commitment for that. And we'll be doing some other programs with the administration as we go forward, both on the state level and also on the federal level. The Government Affairs Series is the most important committee to bring business and government together cooperatively. And we've done this because of the fact that we know the legislators have a very difficult challenge ahead of them. We also know that we need the support of the legislators for so much of what we do. And I want to say this again, I say this at every one of our government affairs programs. This is not the only time we see our legislators. We talk to the legislators or their aides literally weekly because we never know what kind of question our members are going to be asking us. And we want to be able to talk to them, and we do. And I want to say thank you to the legislators because their aides deserve a round of applause. The Government Affairs Series is chaired by Cal Williams. He's done this for a number of years. He's getting better every year. Please welcome Cal Williams. He's also the United Way Director for the Merrimack Valley.
Thank you, Joe. Good morning, Merrimack Valley Chamber of Commerce. I'd just like to say welcome. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us this morning. This is our 3rd installment of our Government Affairs Series. In January, we had our town managers. We had our new Lieutenant Governor, Diane Gonzalez, who had an opportunity to stay with us. And in January, we had both members of our congressional team that was here in February, and today we have our state senators. And we are in the process of putting together several other programs. So I know Joe will be reaching out and letting you know what we have on tap. So with that, I'd just like to say for our chamber membership and Joe and his team and his staff, congratulations and a job well done. Thank you.
And the Merrimack Valley Chamber is actively involved in community programs as well. Michael Sullivan, who you'll hear from in a moment, will tell you about the Gold Star home, which the chamber helped facilitate the complete rehabilitation of for the unfortunate situation that he'll tell you about. You all know about the sergeant that was killed in Afghanistan. The chamber has now been asked to do something else, and we'll tell you about that later. But at the same time, we've done, in conjunction with United Way, last year, 8 food drives, diaper drives, clothing drives. We're going to be involved with a book drive. We also worked in conjunction. We're probably the only chamber that I know of in the country that works closely with the unions. And in conjunction with the AFL-CIO, the Merrimack Valley Central Labor Council, we did a program in Haverhill with Community Action Council providing information on heating assistance and so on, a program the legislators support greatly. So you'll hear more about our community programming in the course of this year. There'll be more food and clothing drives, unfortunately, needed in the Merrimack Valley because of all the things that are happening. But our chairman of the board, as you know, for a number of years was Sal Napoli. Sal became a little bit active in his development project. I think he's now up to about 5 million square feet of space. And the new chairman is Mike Sullivan. Some of you will remember Mike Sullivan as the mayor of the city of Lawrence. We know him as a 40 or 45-year-old company that's been involved with the chamber from the very beginning. His late mother was actively involved in a program we call the Greater Lawrence Revolving Loan Fund, where the chamber works with the tech school and actually builds a home that's sold on the open market training program for the kids. Michael is now our chairman of the board, and I call him, I text him, 10 times a day, and he hasn't said no to me yet. He's still smiling. Please welcome the chairman of the board, Michael Sullivan.
Thank you, Joe, and to the senators and to all of you for being here this morning. It's all of you that makes this chamber so great. But to begin with, if we have a wonderful board of directors that meets quarterly at least, and this is probably the most active board of directors that I've ever been involved with. And if you're on the board of directors, if you could raise your hand and stand up, and I'd like you to receive a nice round of applause if you're on the board of directors at the chamber. I know Cal has done a great job for us. And we have 2 chamber ambassadors that are in the back, and Lars Lars and Tommy Spitaleri. Those are our 2 chamber ambassadors. You will see them at literally every event. And a lot of times the Community Access TV is filming these events. For people that can't make it, you can watch it on cable access TV. So we thank you for that. Joe had mentioned the Gold Star family. I just want to take a minute and just give you all a little bit of an update. But before that, our wonderful Haverhill Mayor, Mr. James Fiorentini, has just graced us with his presence. Mr. Mayor, thank you. So a couple of years ago, when the troops were leaving Afghanistan, and we lost the 13 of them, one of them was a Lawrence person, and it was as you all know the story. We got involved with her family in the real estate world. They were looking for a house. They ended up buying a single-family home in Lawrence, Mass, that just needed a whole lot of work. And we sent out a letter through your Chamber of Commerce that went out to about 2,000 people, just asking for some donations or some help. They might need a little upgrade on some windows, doors, electric, whatever. Well, it turned into about 20 contractors responding to that ask. And 9 months later, through the unbelievable goodwill of Lee Kennedy Construction, a large Boston contractor, a lot of the local contractors, Jackson Lumber, did incredible work. They completely gutted the house and redid everything on the inside. to the tune of about $200,000 worth of labor and materials. And today the house is completely finished for the family, and they're living a little bit of a dream that Johanny had. She was serving with our troops and sending her money back to the family with the dream of one day owning a home. And Johanny, unfortunately, will not see it, but it was her goodwill and the goodwill of all of you from the Chamber of Commerce that has led to this family now living in a very safe, comfortable house. So thank you all once again, by the way, to the chamber to make all of that happen. So with that being said, I want to mention the senators are here, which is fantastic, and they all know. Barry knows because he's been around the block for a little while. Pavel will know, but being the rookie, that we are all here to help. I have never, in my years being involved in a chamber event, where it wasn't a goodwill event, where we understand each other's roles, and all the experts are in this room. There are a lot of housing issues coming up, by the way, and we're blessed today to have the president of the Northeast Association of Realtors with us today, Nellie Soto. Can you stand up, Nellie? And Nellie is the newly elected president of the Northeast Association of Realtors, which represents thousands of local realtors. So we're hearing a lot of home issues about home, rent control, etc. Nellie and the rest of the realtors are always here to help. I want to recognize a wonderful newly elected state rep for the city of Lawrence, Estella Reyes. Estella, can you take it? And Rebecca Oldham, the Groveland Town Administrator, is here with us today. Rebecca, thank you for being here. So first, I'm honored to introduce our wonderful Senator Barry Feingold. He currently serves as a member of the Mass Senate representing the 2nd Essex and Middlesex District since 2019. He previously served from January 2011 to January 2015 as a senator. He was the former state rep of the 17th Essex District. Back then served and did incredible work in the city of Lawrence. A lot of the development that you see really happened under his leadership back then. So wonderful round of applause for our Senator Barry Feingold. Thank you, Mike.
Good morning. Good morning. Great to see everyone. Thank you, Mike, for that kind introduction. Happy St. Patrick's Day month. It's a big month. I see some green out there. Caroline's all great. So, but it's great to see everyone here this morning. And I'm glad to be joined by Joe and Mike Bevilacqua, Cal Williams, and Senator Payano and Senator Tarr, who at some point will show up, but he usually is, he's coming. He's coming, right? I was lucky enough to be named the chair of the Joint Committee on Economic Development and Emerging Technologies, and that committee really sets kind of the tone for our economy and economic development and making sure that we are on the right track. But before I talk about that, I want to thank all of you. I want to thank all of you because what all of you do, we are better off here in Massachusetts because of all you do in the private sector. You've created good paying jobs. And because of all your work, you've funded crucial education, health care, and clean energy programs. And you made Massachusetts a trailblazer and a leader in so many fields. And as I tell people, we can't fund all these great social programs if we don't have a strong business economy that is paying the tax dollars in to make all these things happen. And I'll also say, as a small business owner myself, I know how hard it is out there. I can tell all of you that every other week when I got to make a payroll, I sweat jelly beans. It's not easy, and I respect that. I know how hard that is. And I think what's really makes Massachusetts and the Merrimack Valley great is the entrepreneurship. Every single business at some point was an idea. And when I tell my little son, Max, I said, your greatest strength is your imagination. And entrepreneurship is all about imagination about what is possible. And I don't care if you're a small bodega up to a large $100 billion corporation. Where you start, where you grow, is we want to make Massachusetts a place that is really pro-business. But we do really have some major, major challenges. Last month, the Boston Globe put out a piece documenting that we had 110,000 people move out more than moved in. And unfortunately, you just can't blame it on the weather, because the two biggest states were New Hampshire and Florida. Now, Florida, I can understand maybe about the weather, but last time I checked, go a mile up the street, that's New Hampshire. So we can't say it's the weather. And we have to be really cognizant of that. And part of the problem we're having is that Massachusetts' population is shrinking. And what that means, it just makes it hard for everyone out here to find the necessary labor to fill positions. And it's getting harder and harder to attract and keep talent. So, and what's even troubling in the next 15 years is that the number of workers aging out, people who are retiring, and numbers of workers aging into it is slated to decline by over 45,000 people. That's a significant number. And I was talking to our Senate caucus yesterday. It's like, there's so much to feel good about our state. There really is. But you can't rest on your laurels. Through other things I do, I've spent a lot of time in San Francisco in the last 10 years. And unfortunately, that is a city that has declined. It's not what it was. 30% of all office space in San Francisco is empty. And we have to realize that that could happen here. For the first time that I can remember in 20 years, we had a major office tower default on their loan. That has not happened in a very long time. Now, I think there's some things that we really need to think about where we've met these challenges in the past. You know, I think about some of the things that, Mike Sullivan was talking about what's happened in the city of Lawrence. I think about, if someone told us 2 decades ago that Haverhill was then facing one of the largest municipal deficit ever, and then 20 years later would revitalize their downtown, have a huge housing stock, and bring over $250 million in new investment, breathing new life into the business community, no one had ever believed that. And these successes, were a result of strategic business-friendly policies by a mayor and a city council, and really a state that has welcomed businesses. And this is something that we as a state have to continue. About 10 or 15 years ago, we said that we wanted to be the leader in biotech. And as a result, in the last 10 years, biopharma employment has nearly doubled. And today our life sciences employ over 106,000 workers that average an annual wage over $200,000 a year. When you look at that in total, that's $21 billion of wages. And if you really want to get wonky with me, that's over $1 billion in tax revenue. So that has mattered. The fact that we said we're going to give tax breaks to biotech has really worked. And as a result, we have some great companies. And that matters to us locally here in the Merrimack Valley. Obviously, all of you know about Pfizer and what they've done and how helpful they all were to all of us during COVID. But we've had recent companies like IQHQ. They have a new campus in Andover. And this is stuff that we just have to build on, and we just can't take it for granted because every single other state wants these industries in their state. But there are some things that we also have to think about. How do we prepare ourselves for the next 20 years? There are some industries in computer science, semiconductors, and cybersecurity. I think one of the major things that we are lacking is computer science. Now, I bet all of you, or most of you, or if you have kids, probably took a foreign language in high school. That's great. But you know that we also need to offer the language of computer science. We need to basically make it mandatory that every single high school offers computer science training. because everything that we do is going to be code-based, and that we need more and more skilled workers to be able to be programmers. There's still not enough engineers and people out there. The other and the thing is, we also want to do is we have a huge semiconductor industry. You know, in Wilmington, we have the headquarters of Analog Devices. They are the leader in semiconductor work. We need to build on that, and we need to grow that industry. We also need to make sure that we are competitive when it comes to our taxes. I filed legislation along with Senator Tarr, and I was encouraged to see Governor Healy push to reduce the short-term capital gains tax from 12% to 5%. We have to compete. We have to make sure that what we charge here for taxes is in line with other states. And I think the other thing that we need to think about is how do we make Massachusetts more affordable for housing? Now, Nellie, will tell you, who's a realtor, that there is a massive shortage of inventory, like nothing we've ever seen. We have still, interest rates went up, and there's still bidding wars going on there for housing. Renting has gone up through the roof. And there's no way to control it. Despite what you hear in the paper, price controls don't work. There's only one thing that does work, and that's production. And I think what we're going to have to really think about is, are we willing to be bold and do things like increasing the number of 40B and requiring more communities to accept more housing? Because this notion that, it's going to overflow our schools and overflow our departments is just not true. Our enrollment in our schools was way down. But it's still becoming almost impossible to live here. And if we want to be competitive, we need to have housing that is competitive as well. I also think that when we look at what has gone on in our state, the fact that, and what we deem as low-level service jobs, which are not low-level, but they're called that, there are so many people that would love to come to our country and work these jobs. We need to work with our federal delegation. We need to put all partisan politics aside, and we need to let more people in our country. Bottom line. Because all of us are paying more in taxes because of it, and all of us are paying more in higher prices because of it. And we're not going to calm inflation until we have more workers. So this is something that we have to work with our federal government to make sure it happens. And I'd also want there to be what we call more H-1B visas to let people in our country that are engineers that can help us in our high-tech sector. So I am very bullish on our state. I'm very bullish on Merrimack, the Merrimack Valley. And I have to be. I grew up here. I'm still here. I'm raising my family here. I have a business here. And I think it's an incredible part of the state. But we can't be complacent. We can't say, well, just because we're a leader in so many areas that we can just, sit on our hands. We have to compete. And I hope as chair of the Economic Development Committee that we'll continue to do that. Finally, what I'd like to say is that the best way that myself, Senator Payano, or Senator Tarr get ideas is through all of you. There's no monopoly of ideas. And some of my best ideas and bills I filed came from people like you. So please speak up. Please let us know what's on your mind. And we'd love to hear any thoughts you have. So thank you for giving me a couple minutes today. And I wish you all well in 2023. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
We'll, after Senator Tarr is on his way, he takes the long way. But when he gets here, after he speaks, we'll take questions for the three senators. Mr. Chairman?
Okay, we have a special announcement before we go on with our next speaker. Today is a very, very special day for a very, very special person because it is Senator Feingold's birthday.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you all.
We're not going to ask you to sing happy birthday yet.
Thank you all.
Happy birthday, Barry. So our next special guest, Senator Pavel Payano, he's been a member of the Mass Senate for the 1st Essex District, elected last November, and he just assumed office January of 2023. Pavel was also a member of the Lawrence City Council for a number of years, did incredible work, but I have a little quick personal story about Mr. Payano on why about 15 years ago we knew this guy was going to be where he is today. When I was mayor of Lawrence, I was also the chairperson of the Lawrence School Board, and we had brought in a high school representative that actually sat on the board and actually took votes, added to the dialogue, etc. And if any of you followed the Lawrence School Committee back then, I can tell you, he was the only one that made sense on that committee. And I am including myself. So he was a high school kid at the time, and it's so great to follow his career, and now we're proud to call him Mr. Senator. So Pavel Payano, come up.
Good morning, everybody. Just want to thank the mayor for that amazing introduction. I always call him the mayor. He's my first boss. Gave me an opportunity when I was in my late teens. Throughout my teens, I went out. I think since the age of 12, from 12 to 15, I went out to every business, kind of, doing the knocking on doors almost, looking for a job. I think a lot of us that are coming from immigrant backgrounds, we have this thing in our mind that as soon as we can, we want to work, earn money for ourselves, for our family. And since I was 12, I was always, trying to find something. My friends joke around, not even Market Basket would hire you. But luckily, Lawrence gave me an opportunity, hired me. I was it was a title that sounded amazing on a resume. Assistant to the recycling coordinator of Lawrence. She, made me do a lot of Excel, a lot of work, got me passionate about recycling, about the environment, and that's a passion I carry on today. I want to thank all of you for being here. I think that these types of gatherings, these types of convenings are very important to the welfare of our community. I will say I feel like I've known Joe for a very long time. After college, I was working for Congresswoman Nikki Tsongas, and I was tasked to go to all of these events. Being 20, 21 years old, I was like, I don't know, this is for me. But soon after, coming into the events and understanding sort of the importance of gathering everyone together, I saw the value that they had, not just for Lawrence, but for the entire Merrimack Valley. So I hope to continue to be a part of events like this. I thought it'd be important for me, since we just came in with this amazing new class of senators and reps this January. It'd be important for me to tell you a little bit about myself. There's some faces here I recognize, some names that I've seen that I've been like, oh, I definitely want to meet these folks. And then there's a lot of faces here that I think we're meeting for the first time. So just wanted to talk to you a little bit about my background before I talk to you about the work that we're doing at the State House. So as the mayor said, I was a city councilor in Lawrence for a little over 5 years. Before that, I was on the school committee. I completely forgot that in my teens, I was also on the school committee as a student representative or something. But that was a great memory. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for bringing that up. I did not have that in mind. But I've always had this passion to try to figure out how do we improve communities like mine, communities like Lawrence, Methuen, and Haverhill. And a part of that is education and ensuring that we're providing our youth the best opportunities possible. I've worked as a social worker. I've worked as a teacher, high school teacher for DYS. I've been in charge of programs to connect cities like Lawrence and Lowell and bring them together and try to expand the number of leaders and entrepreneurs that gateway cities have. And now I have the great pleasure of serving as a state senator to three incredible communities that have a lot to offer and have a lot of shared issues, and I think that they have a lot of opportunities to work together to try to work together, advocate together to really tackle on these important issues that our gateway cities have. One of the things that I'm very excited about is I was just appointed to be the chairman of the Community Development and Small Business Committee, which is something that the committee I wanted. So I was very, very happy about. And I think in part because COVID has taught us, for those that did not know before, COVID has taught us that small businesses are the heart of every community. And, especially in Lawrence, our small businesses have gone through so many crises. We went through 2 gas crises and then COVID. And folks have had to figure out how to be creative and how to rethink the way that they do their business. And I'm sure all of you here have had to do that as well. Folks have owned a storefront, own a restaurant, had to figure out how to go from dine in to dine out, how to expand outside seating, how to even tackle hybrid. I'm sure that's probably always an ongoing conversation, the balance between coming into the office and doing hybrid work. And I think that's changed the business world here in the Commonwealth, and I think it's changed it for the better. And I'm looking forward to see how we can continue to be nimble and how we continue to be creative about how we conduct business here in the Commonwealth. All my work has always been about grassroots. I taught community development at Merrimack College. One of the things that I would tell my students is, you might think you know the answer. Like you've had a certain amount of experience. You're going to get your master's, and you're going to walk into a place, and you're like, I've seen this before. This is what you need to do. But you really can't go in with that type of attitude. You have to go in being open and energetic about listening to what other people think are the issues, what other people think are the ways to resolve those problems. And that's what I feel like, I want to make sure that as a legislator I'm doing. So I am open to meeting with any of you. I'm interested in kind of hearing what are the issues that are going on in your industry, and also what are ways that we could solve it, whether it's at the State House or it's at the local level. I think we have to create stronger partnerships between both the private sector and our leadership, both from the local and state level. So I'm very excited about working on that. I'm also in the Public Health Committee, which is something that is very important to me. The Lawrence General Hospital is a very, very important hospital, not just for Lawrence, but for the entire Merrimack Valley. And it's had the highest urban standalone community hospital inpatient volume last year, with 10,543 discharges and over 14,000 patients. Yet in the last 3 years, they've had some issues trying to stay afloat. And one of those issues is because they receive 70% of the state average commercial reimbursement. So that means that for an operation that is done at Lawrence, procedures done in Lawrence General, procedures that's done in Boston, the costs are very similar, yet they're getting reimbursed something completely different. So that's something that I hope that we're able to tackle. I've filed some legislation and co-sponsored others that I believe will address inequities that we have in our healthcare system. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to tackle on those issues and ensure that Lawrence General and other community hospitals like that are here to stay and are stronger. I'm also in the higher ed committee, which I'm very passionate about. You know, as I said in my background, I'm very passionate about education. My parents were public schools teachers. And one of the things that I always look at is to try to ensure that there's not just there's career pathways, and then there's pathways for individuals to take whatever opportunities that they want to take. And part of that is college. Right now, a college is very unaffordable. We have programs right now in all three municipalities that I represent, where we are early college, where we are getting students to take classes at Northern Essex, Merrimack College, at least in Lawrence. And one of the things that I'm really excited about is that some of these kids are actually on their way to getting associates. Right now, a public, tuition fees at UMass Amherst are somewhere over $30,000. So that means that for many families, for any of those kids that are able to get an associates, they're saving their families and themselves over $60,000 in potentially loans. And not just that, but they're getting an experience that a lot of people don't tend to have, especially coming from urban colleges. So one of the things that is not well known is that if you come from an urban high school, there is a likelihood that it might take you longer than 4 years to graduate from college. As someone that came from Lawrence High School, I'll tell you one of the difficulties is that some of us have to work and go to school. Other times, some of the courses that we're taking, we might not have had the same foundation as some of our other peers. I remember there was this one class, I was taking chemistry back when I thought I wanted to be a doctor. My dad said, "You're going into politics." I said, "No, I'm going to be a doctor." So he was right. So I was taking chemistry, and I remember, that semester, I worked very hard that semester, studying, and I ended up with a B. And I turned to my friend who had barely shown up to class. He only came to the final because I told him, I'm like, "Hey, Kyle, finals tomorrow, buddy. What are you doing?" And he said he got an A-. And I'm like, wait, how did you get an A-? I got a B. I worked hard. I've, took all, I've been in all my classes, did all my homework. And he's like, "Oh, well, Pavel, this is just a repeat of the class that I had in high school. We had the same book. Basically they were redoing the same work." So that's what made me understand that him and I were not starting off at the same place. And just like that, there are a lot of students that might be in similar situation, and them having an opportunity to go to college while they're getting the support in high school is important. And then there's other students that perhaps college is not for them. And I think we need to ensure that our students are graduating not just with a high school diploma, but with a career pathway, and that they know where they have a goal to where they want to go, and that there are programs in place to try to get them there. So we are partnering with some of the unions, and in a couple of months, so we hope to have an event where we tell the community about the different apprenticeship programs that are available, not just for folks coming out of high school, but for adults as well. And I think it's important as we're looking at where the holes are, where the need is for employment, that we're providing the training necessary for folks to be able to switch careers or to get into those programs. I'd like to end with saying that I'm really excited about doing this type of work, really excited about connecting with all of you. I'm excited about also, we have some amazing sort of new opportunities coming up with the different partnerships that are being created through within Lawrence and Methuen. A conversation that I was having with the mayor of Methuen about something that Haverhill did. So Haverhill has an electrical aggregation program, and kudos to the mayor for pushing that. And talking to the mayor of Methuen, he was excited about that, and he was able to get it through Methuen. We're working with Lawrence to try to do something similar, it's great seeing what other communities are doing and trying to spread those ideas to the local leaders to make sure that we're all sort of moving in the same page. And I look forward to coming to more of these events and getting to know all of you. Thank you, and have a great morning.
Thank you, Senator Payano. We look forward to working with you in the upcoming year. Last but not least, who's been serving, I think, the longest, is Senator Bruce Tarr. He serves as the Republican Minority Leader of the Massachusetts Senate. Since 1995, he's represented the 1st Essex and Middlesex District. Today, in the spirit of unifying the Democrats and the Republicans, he also will volunteer singing Barry a happy birthday, solo, by the way, at the end of his remarks. Senator Bruce Tarr.
Well, thanks very much, Mike. I appreciate that. And I want to say it's great to be here. And the main reason I came this morning was to be able to wish my colleague and friend a happy birthday. And knowing him as a prolific fundraiser, I know this is the cheapest opportunity I'm going to have to do that over the next 24 hours. I'm sure that, as you look on his campaign website, it'll be Barry Feingold's birthday. It'll be Barry Feingold's birthday in Haverhill, Barry Feingold's birthday in Andover, Barry Feingold's birthday in North Andover. But today, with the chamber, you get a discounted rate to be able to do that. And so that's one of the many reasons that I'm delighted to be here. And I am delighted to be here because I am so proud of our legislative delegation and proud to be here to speak with them, to all of you, about our collective aspirations for the session that lies ahead and for the times and the challenges that we face. And I do mean it seriously. I am so pleased to be able to work with Barry on so many occasions, and now we share the town of North Andover, in which I very much appreciate that partnership, and I've always appreciated my partnership with him. And I'm also pleased to welcome Senator Payano to our ranks. And I just want to let you know that either now or later you're going to be getting a Joe Star, which is one of these stars, right, that comes from the Merrimack Valley Chamber of Commerce. You will soon have a place on your wall in the office where you're going to have a galaxy of those Joe Stars. See, right there, right? So I just want to let you know, when you go back to the State House today, if you're going in today, just look for a place on the wall because you will soon amass a number of those. Yes, Barry?
Bruce, remember, they're only serving breakfast, not lunch.
Barry, question and answers are later. But it's good to be here, and it's good to be with the chamber. Raise your hand if you've already been invited to at least 5 more chamber events to come in the next 7 days. Joe gave me the brochures. Did you notice as I was approaching the podium, he never misses a beat. This is just 2. There's a 3-ring binder right up here in front of Joe with the other 150 that he's going to invite you to by the end of this breakfast meeting. And, it's always hard to keep up with Joe. It's just, he's running out of venues in the Merrimack Valley to even have events. I think there's going to be one in a phone booth next week, the only one that's still here. Merrimack Valley Chamber of Commerce invites you to the meeting in the phone booth. It doesn't matter because Joe is always at work trying to make sure the chamber has enough activity. You okay, Joe?
I'm fine.
All right, very good. And it's good to also be here with one of our other new colleagues, Representative Reyes, in the House of Representatives. And I want to say thank you to you for being here. And it's good to have you joining us as well. And of course, it's also good to be here with my longtime friend, Mayor Fiorentini. And I know that I thought with sort of bittersweet emotions about your recent announcement of leaving, Mr. Mayor. It's been an honor and a privilege to work with you as part of this region's legislative delegation over the years. But I also know that you want to spend some time with your family, and you certainly have earned that, and I wish you the very best with that. But it's certainly good to see you here this morning. All right, so now that the prefatory stuff is done, it's good to be with you here as we face an important crossroads in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And it feels like oftentimes we're always at a crossroads. We have to make important decisions. There are important policy things that are weighing on us. But right now, we are in a particularly transitory time where we have to work to shape the future of the Massachusetts that we want. And what I mean by that is we're experiencing some significant policy changes that are going to call on us to use the very best of our ability to collaborate and work together and make forward progress. One of the most notable is the cost of living here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We know that, for instance, we have some of the highest electricity rates in the United States of America. We know that we're experiencing the high cost of inflation the same way other states are, but in many ways we're experiencing it in a worse fashion. And we know that that, coupled with the cost of housing and so many other things, is posing a serious issue for us, not only those of us who remain, but trying to keep others from leaving the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, because as you know, the Globe recently reported that after a number of years of growth, we lost 100,000 people. And we lost 100,000 people in the context of every day talking to employers that can't find enough people to fill the jobs that they have. And in fact, there are estimates that range in the hundreds of thousands about jobs right now that exist in our state for which there is no one to fill those jobs. And so when we think about affordability, it's a very real threat to all of us right now, and we've all got to work together to do the very best we can. And that's why I'm pleased that we're seeing the continuation of the discussion on Beacon Hill about how we can use tax policy to target some of those high costs to be able to make the state more affordable. And over the last session, there was a very long debate in the Massachusetts legislature. For our part, it was in the Senate. And again, I want to thank Senator Feingold for his partnership on so many of the initiatives that we worked on to address some of those high costs, whether it be the rental deduction, because we know the high cost of rental housing in Massachusetts, whether it be the senior citizen property tax circuit breaker, because we know seniors are struggling to be able to stay in their homes and help maintain the character of the communities that they help to build. We know that we need to look at things like the estate tax, which is certainly right now, as Massachusetts is an outlier, an incentive as you get older to leave the state. Probably a significant contributor to those 100,000 people that left. And so we know that we have to work on those things, and we know that we are particularly situated right now, at this moment in time, to be able to do it. Because for all the uncertainties about our economy, and by the way, the AIM Business Confidence Index ticked up recently, so we're up just slightly as we were in January of last year. But even as we have some more confidence, we know that we're in a new environment where it's hard to find people to fill the jobs that we have, where remote work has become much more part of an integrated workforce, much more than it was before, and we need to find ways to accommodate that. But as we do that, we have to work on affordability. Even as we have that uncertainty, Massachusetts right now continues to trend above our benchmark, although the benchmark just changed, so I'm going to use an old number. But if you use the old benchmark that just recently changed, we are almost $1 billion year to date in tax collection above what our benchmark was. Above what our benchmark was. So the challenge for us is to take all of that robust revenue collection and to make sure that we allocate it appropriately across the landscape to face the cost of affordability in Massachusetts. And part of that equation has to be tax policy. Now, I'm really proud of what happened in the Senate and correspondingly what happened in the House, because we debated, Barry, for the better part of a year last year how we were going to do this. And while there were certainly different opinions in the Senate, and you can imagine I was pretty shy about mine, but in the end, we came forward with a comprehensive bipartisan package that was unanimously approved by the Senate. And in the House, there was unanimous approval of a similar package. They didn't align completely, but conceptually they were the same. And so at the end of the legislative session, all of that went away because we didn't get it to the governor's desk. But the good news is that the governor, in her most recent filings, filed a package which includes many of the same elements, signaling that we are poised for another continuing debate, and hopefully we'll be able to get it over the goal line in Massachusetts this session, within the next several months, so that we can address the issue of affordability. The second challenge that we face And it's a challenge that we face now, and it's going to grow in the future. And that is our supply of energy and the distribution of that energy. We know when everybody saw their most recent electric and gas bills that we have an issue of supply. Now, it's not that we want to go backward and say we want to continue to emit carbon and use carbon sources, but if we're going to have this kind of demand, we have to address supply and distribution. If we don't, we are headed for a disaster. And so several years ago in the Senate, we worked on a piece of legislation that ultimately became law requiring us to have a 5-year energy plan so that we would look ahead, predict demand, and then identify the ways that we're going to be able to meet that demand. And so that's working, and we've been moving forward on that. Again, I thank Senator Feingold for his partnership. But we also need to think about transmission and distribution. Because if we're going to have all of this supply that we need, and we're going to have all of this demand over here, we've got to have an electric grid that keeps pace with those things and is reliable to do it. If we don't do that, we will not only not be able to meet our goals in the near term, but we will never be able to meet our goals for electrification of so many things in our lives, like the vehicles that we drive. And so I filed legislation to mirror that 5-year energy plan with a transmission and distribution plan so that we can plan our future and know what we need to do to make sure that we meet that demand. And that's important. But along those same lines, and I was so heartened to hear Senator Payano speak about education, because we all know how important education is. I don't think there is any disagreement in state government that we all value education. And what we need to do is figure out how to make sure that education is accessible to everyone and how we can elevate this workforce, whether it be with the kind of education that we've traditionally thought about for everyone in terms of college and institutions of higher learning, but also vocational education. We know that we need to expand our capacity for vocational education. We need to make it accessible for traditional students, and we need to make it accessible during the afternoon and at night for those who are not traditional students, but are seeking to improve their skill set. We've begun to do that, but we have a lot more work to do. So as we move forward with that, we begin to address another one of those challenges that we have. And then, lastly, on some of the costs and the challenges and the issues that we face is the issue of housing. It is clearly one of the most vexing things that we face in state government, and part of the reason for that is that our supply of housing is dictated by our land use policy. So while we in state government say we need hundreds of thousands of units of housing, I think we're somewhere between 200,000 and 250,000 units behind where we need to be, and we've been producing about 20,000 units a year. Do the math on how long it will take for us to catch up just with that amount. But while we think about land use policy in the legislature, we also have 351 cities and towns who have the autonomous ability to set land use policy in their community. And so it's a very difficult balance as we try to do things like the Housing Choices Bill to say this is what state policy is going to be, or the very controversial MBTA zoning proposal. While we think about that as state policy, we also have to think about our partners in 351 cities and towns that have to implement that policy, have to make sure that there's water and wastewater treatment for those new units, have to make sure that there's internal transportation within the community to serve those units. And so we are faced with a very important challenge, but a very complicated challenge that we all need to work together to address. We cannot do it in a vacuum on Beacon Hill, and the cities and towns cannot do it in a vacuum in 351 localities across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We have got to find better ways to do this, and we've got to find better ways to be able to increase housing while not losing the character of communities that they cherish so much and should cherish so much. Lastly, we need to continue to think about the environment. That's very.
That's your second last.
No, that was, no, see. All right, so for those of you that are paying attention, I want you to take out your pen. I said I was going to talk about several challenges with the cost of housing, right, Senator? That was category 1. We ended category 1 a few minutes ago, right? I want you to make note of that. And now we're on the last category, all right? So category 2, issue 1, right? We good? Everybody got that? Okay. So
I'm going to stay between them.
Joe, you're up here thinking, I got to do a forum on housing, I got to do a forum on electrical costs, I got to do, and I'm going to do them all within the next month.
I'm going to tell you, we already got some planned.
Yeah,
They're right there in the paper.
well, David Morales is sitting right here. You got to do something on healthcare. I know
We
that's
have
coming
talked
up.
to him already about it.
I'm sure, and I'm sure you'll get him to sponsor it, and everybody will be happy. But we can't forget about the environment, and there's been a lot of initiative recently and over the last several years with regard to the Merrimack River. A lot of that advocacy was led by our former colleague in the Senate, Senator DeZoglio, now our state auditor. And Gerard is here from the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission. I want to say thank you to him for carrying that effort and picking it up. And we have just filed legislation that all of us are supportive of to create a Merrimack River collaborative to be able to deal with issues in the health of the river and preventing contamination in the river in a unified, comprehensive way. And that is something that truly we can all have a hand in, and truly we can all be proud of having a hand in as we work together. We worked on awareness of when discharges are going into the river. We can check that box off. We got that with notification. Now we got to work on the sources of that contamination and eliminate them. So I've tried to cover as many issues as I can. I'm sure that Joe will want to do a dinner soon, and I'll get back to the rest of them then. For those of you who have a scorecard, I think I covered approximately 10 issues in 2 categories. Senator Feingold and I will be verifying that at the end of this. And it's a real pleasure to be here again with my colleagues, and again to welcome Senator Payano to the Senate. He's already made an impact, and we very much welcome his presence. And I do want to seriously say thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for being involved not only in issues that affect businesses and employers and employees, but things that affect our quality of life here in the Merrimack Valley each and every day. It is an engaged chamber, it is an active chamber, and it's one that makes sure, as long as Joe's around, that you will always be well fed when we have one of these discussions. Thank you all very much.
I want to just quickly just remind you all of some upcoming programs that the Senate has all spoke about. The Energy and Environmental Affairs Secretary is going to be coming to talk about the issues of our environment and climate here in Massachusetts. Senator Feingold spoke about economic development, as did Senator Payano. The Secretary of the Executive Office of Economic Development is coming, and a program we've not yet officially announced, but one that we're working on that all the senators touched upon. We're working with the Secretary of Labor. We think the date's going to be coming very, very soon. We're also working with the 2 vocational technical high schools on a program because not everyone's destined for college, and there's a tremendous demand for vocational jobs. So you'll see a program on that and a very unique job fair that's coming up. But I want to say thank you to the senators, and we're going to take a couple questions in a second because you see how important it is to have great representation, and we're very, very fortunate. Please give them a round of applause. And I want to tell you something that I see firsthand on business development, why it's so important. When Sal Napoli was starting the idea of the Riverwalk, he had the first building, and then he had some ideas for some more development. One of the first calls he made was with Senator Feingold, and I was in the office. And he was there every step along the way. And then it continued with Senator DeZoglio, continued with Senator Tarr was there as well. It shows how important it is to work with the state senators, with our state representatives, and our members of Congress. And you're going to see more and more of that continue because the challenges are greater and greater. So let me ask any questions. We have time for 2 or 3 questions. If not, they will be here after the program closes, and you can talk to them directly. I just want to say thank you once again. I want to say, yes.
Before you get to the last ad,
I want to talk about the St. Patrick's Day mixer.
we're gonna sing happy birthday to you. Is
We
that
got
okay?
we got him a cake.
I know you got him a cake. You didn't get him any candles.
Well, because we didn't want to ask how old he was.
But he's timeless. That's the answer to that. All right. Is everybody ready? We're going to do this. All right. So on the count of 3.
You see why you should have left early?
1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Barry. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you. And again, I want to say, recognize Mayor Jim Farentini once again. The mayor's done a tremendous job working with the business community over the years. No questions. The senators will be here. I want to say thank you to the senators once again, and thank you to all the aides. Thank you to our representative that's here and representative aides. Thank you all. It's just been a great program. Thank you to our sponsors. We look forward to what? We need a group photo. Don't leave. Thank you all.